So, so this evening session, I've just hit the record button. So this evening session is on motivation. I'm going to spend
Sorry.
just yes,
Excuse me,
yes,
sir. Oh,
yes.
okay. My side wasn't showing. Now it's showing.
Okay,
Thank you.
fantastic. No problem. So this evening session is really on motivation, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. I think the reading, if you go through the reading and all the material, the additional material, you'll see, especially the textbook is a very good, sort of takes you through it very well, which is, and starts off with emotions and the psychological aspects of it, and sort of put it within that context, which is great. Because generally, when we speak about motivation from a organizational perspective, or from a business management perspective, organizational psychology perspective, it's all about efficiency and it's about productivity. And what Amos does in his textbook is sort of put it within the context of psychology, understanding emotions, understanding the drivers of emotions, and so forth, and how that then leads us to motivation, which is great, which is a great way of sort of contextualizing it, which is fantastic. So yeah, so this evening session really is about the science of motivation, explore the key theories behind motivation. I'm not going to go through all of them. Again, these theories, if you read through them, they sort of they make sense. And let me just pause there and talk about theories. Why do we have theories? In management science, human resource management sort of sits within that space. Organizational psychology sort of sits in that space. So things like organizational behavior, organizational psychology, they don't call it personnel psychology any longer. All of those sort of all sit together within this umbrella of management science, human resource management, operations management, supply chain management. They're all part of the same piece, and all of them fit together. So let me talk just very briefly about theories and why we have theories, why theories are important. Theories are just a way of trying to make sense of something that is very complex. And within management science specifically, with whether it's human resource management, whether it is organizational psychology, whether it is business management, it's a complex environment in which you operate because of the people, the way people behave, the way people relate to one another within this very because an organization is essentially a very artificial form of community. If you're doing social anthropology and you're looking at organizations, you'll go, what? It is an artificial form of a community where people are working and relating to one another in a way that is unnatural. In a normal community out there in society, you would gravitate and you would live within communities which are part of who you are, part of what defines you, part of what makes you the person that you are. An organization is an artificial community. So given that, it is very complex, and we have theories in order to try to make sense of it. These theories are true some of the time, not all of the time. But what they do give us is a good guideline to say that in most cases, in most organizations, this holds true, but not in all and not all the time. It is always contextual. So given that background, especially when you're doing first year management, when you're doing first year things like organizational psychology, when you're doing first year, any first year course, you are bombarded with all of these theories, with all of these frameworks, with all of these ways of looking at the world and looking at organizations. And some of them, they're like all, and they all have people's names, by the way. If the best, the way that you sort of put your name up in lights in academia is to have your name ascribed to a theory. Porter's five forces, Porter's value chain, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, Herzberg theory of motivation, McClellan's theory, Alder's theory, Skinner's theory. In all of these, Max's bureaucracy, in all of these theories. So so let me give you maybe a bit of a background to motivation and understanding motivational theory and how it sort of fits into this as organizational theory started sort of developing over time. So we come out of the Industrial Revolution, we get into scientific management, which is Taylor, and Max talks about bureaucracy and bureaucratic theory, and then we get into Foyle, which was a French research academic that sort of introduced the first bits of POLC, planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. And that's really where we got the management process, sort of in the 1920s. And then in the 1930s is where psychology and organizational theory sort of collide. And one of the first motivational theorists or organizational theorists was Skinner. And he did this landmark experiment with typists in which he tried to find out if you can improve the performance of typists if you change conditions in which they work. So they wanted to know, do they type faster? Do they deliver more productivity? And they played around with light. So but people sitting in a room, typing, and they increased and they played around with two variables, which is light and temperature, to understand that if those two things can be manipulated, do people type faster? Do they deliver better productivity? And this landmark experiment sort of started off this idea or this entire sort of line of inquiry on understanding motivation. Because think about it, ultimately in any organization, you want to do things faster, quicker, cheaper. Because that's the elements of productivity. Faster, efficiency, quicker, which is not the same as faster. Quicker simply means effectiveness, which means faster, efficient, but with the same result, with the same replicability, with the same results over and over. So that's effectiveness. So faster, quicker, and what was the last one? At a lower cost. At a lower cost, because those are the key elements. If you can do that, your productivity goes up, your efficiency goes up, your productivity goes up, the quality of your products increases, and you deliver the same consistent product to your customer, same consistent service to your customer. And if you can do that at a lower cost, that is when your margins expand. So this line of inquiry started with Skinner, started this whole sort of history of trying to find out what truly motivates people to do one thing versus something else. And that is really where psychology and sort of organizational science, organizational theory, management science sort of collided, and it started off this area of study, which we now know as or call organizational psychology, which is the psychology within organizations and understanding people and how they behave and respond to different stimuli within organizations through the lens of psychology. So that's where it started. Blame the typists. And so that's a bit of the background to it. And throughout the 1930s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, with the implementation of technology, with the computer, with the microchip, where things were just getting faster and faster, you'll be able to process information faster. With the rise of the internet, where suddenly the speed of work just increased, the level of complexity of work increased, the way we work changed fundamentally, and it was always driven by this sort of idea of how do we increase efficiency, improve effectiveness, and lower cost. Which kind of brings us to the last 2 years and a lot of the discussion around AI and the impact that AI is going to have on the world of work. And do yourself a favor, especially someone that is studying in this area, go and do some research on the impact of AI and the different viewpoints. And there's two major ones. The first big one is AI is going to replace us, robots are going to replace us, and within one generation, there won't be any work for us, and we'll live a life of leisure, and we'll live on what we call basic income, BDI, basic something income grant or something, where the government will just give you money. And you can work if you want to, but the work will be scarce and will be very specific specialist work. So that's one view of doing things. And then you can go off and paint and make music and live your life fully and completely. And that's the utopian view of the world with AI and robotics replacing the work as we know it today. Then there is the dystopian way of looking at the world in which AI and robotics is going to replace all of us, and essentially our need or who we are and how to define ourselves. Because as humans, we define ourselves through, or we find purpose in our work. And the philosophers would say that work gives us meaning, whether it is through making a pair of shoes, or maybe if it is writing a computer program, or if it is delivering a service to a customer. Work gives us meaning. Work is a valuable part of defining human beings and their purpose. And if AI and robotics are going to replace us, what does that mean for that purpose? What does that mean for who we are and what defines us? And the dystopian view of AI and robotics is very dystopian. So there are those two, and please hold gently onto both of those ideas and both of those viewpoints, because it changes each and every day. So back to motivation. Back to motivation and the importance of it. It's a driving force that influences actions and behavior. It's essential for employee engagement. Now, this is where things get interesting, because yes, we can say that it's important for employee engagement, but how do we define what is employee engagement? So in HR language, in organizational psychology, organizational behavior language, we talk about engagement, employee engagement. So the higher levels of employee engagement you have, which means people are engaged in what they do. They come to work, they're excited about what they do, they're highly motivated, they deliver fantastic products, higher levels of innovation, fantastic customer service. They really engage in what they do. They really engage in the company and organization and everything that they do. Highly motivated. And this then drives productivity, because what you'll find is that highly engaged employees tend to do more with less efficiency. They tend to drive and have higher rates of innovation, higher levels of creativity. They tend to solve problems, better customer service, effectiveness, and they do more with less cost. So you have, the higher your engagement, you have faster, quicker, lower cost operations, which improves your margins. The question is, how do you get employees to be engaged? Because, and this is the crux of it, because before Daniel Pink's research, one would say, just pay people more money. The more you pay people, the more engaged they're going to be, and they're going to come to work, and they're going to give it their all. They're going to bleed for the company. And we've now since found out that money is not what drives people. We have other drivers. We have other things that motivate us. So if it's not money, then what is it? Is it promotions? Not everyone is turned on by a promotion. Not everyone drives. Not everyone is highly motivated or what do we call it, highly motivated and have a drive for a promotion or for seeking more power. So what is it? How do we get people to be more engaged? Because engage is essentially a veiled term for just saying, how do we get people to do more with less, faster, quicker? And there's two types of factors. There's intrinsic factors, the person, the internal side of the person, and then there's extrinsic factors, the things outside, the conditions under which they work. And a lot of the early research, starting off with Skinner and the typist, was on these extrinsic extrinsic factors. And that is why through the 1970s and 1980s, organizational design, physical organization design became such a big thing. How do we design work and how do we design offices in such a way that people feel as if they're part of something bigger, they have a bigger purpose, and it's beautiful buildings and it's beautiful work environment and it's open plan and people are sort of collaborating and they engage and they're sitting next to each other, they can shout at one another. And a lot of the early research was focused on the external environment, about how do we make the work environment a great environment for people to want to come to work. And if you think of a company like Google, as I said last week, a company like Google that truly sort of took that to the extreme. They went all out with sleeping pods and more and more and more. However, in the last 20 years or so, we took more of an intrinsic sort of view. We took a journey internally and tried to understand what is it, what are those levers, what are those factors inside a person that makes them, or what are the things that drives a person to want to come to work. Not that it is, even if it's not such a great place to work in. So that was really how we've moved from niche theories into process theories. So let's talk just very briefly about the two different types of theories, and then I'll pause for some questions. There's two types of theories, which is the niche theories and process theories. Niche theories are really about the internal, intrinsic, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, Alder's ERG theory, Herzberg's two-factor theory, McClelland's learned needs theory, and then we've got Skinner's reinforcement theory, Skinner, equity theory, which is Adam, and Locke's goal-setting theory, expectancy theory, which is Froome. And I'm not going to go through all of them, but I encourage you to read through it. The textbook is very good at giving you a breakdown of it. Again, what I would encourage you to do is use AI as a learning companion, which means that you can actually go to Gemini and have a conversation with Gemini and you can actually upload all of the learning material. You can upload the learning outcomes, and you can actually have a conversation with it and say, listen, explain to me McClelland's theory in a bit more detail. Give me some examples of it, and so forth. And I can tell you that using AI in that way is absolutely phenomenal. It is such a great tool for learning if you do use it correctly. Expectancy theory, self-determination theory. And then I uploaded a little video for you on Daniel Pink. And again, this was 15 years ago, where we came up with this radical idea that money is not a motivator. And he talked about autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Autonomy is give a person opportunity to determine their own fate, give an opportunity for people to be autonomous, give them the space, and then it's mastery, getting very good at something that is truly important to you. And then there's purpose. People want to connect to something that's greater than themselves. And companies, if you see about 10 years ago, 15 years ago, companies started communicating this whole purpose-driven thing a lot more. They were a lot more explicit about it. I don't know how many of you have seen the whole Dove brand ad in which you have purpose-driven brands now, where brand communication became a lot more than just product, just as features, and it became about purpose. And that Dove ad about where a person describes a woman and then she describes herself, and you can see the difference, how others see you. And that Dove ad was so groundbreaking because it changed the narrative around how we communicate beauty standards, first of all, but also how brands can transcend sort of just features and price, but they can go beyond that, and that's really what they call purpose-driven marketing. And organizations have become the same, in which they attract, because they realize that to attract the best talent, to attract the best people, and people are driven, and especially the younger generation, millennials, the Gen Zs, and also now Gen Alphas, as they're growing up, they are more purpose-driven. They are a lot more wanting to connect with something greater than themselves. I don't know how many of you saw the Pepsi advert, which was an absolute disaster. The whole Pepsi Jenner advert, it was absolutely, yeah, it was terrible. But it was an attempt to connect young people to this purpose-driven branding, to purpose-driven company. So that was great. Then there's cultural influences on motivation, and I'll pause after the slide. Culture shapes values and motivators, and this is both from individualistic and a collective perspective and differences. And you'll find that in the East, when we talk about motivation and intrinsic and extrinsic motivational drivers, you'll find that in the East, in countries like Korea, in Japan, in countries like China, there's a different motivation is seen differently. Whereas in the West, it's a lot more about the individual. It's about me. It's about I. There, it's a lot more about the collective. It's a lot more about us as a company and what can I do for the company, as opposed to in the West, where we see what the company can do for me. Literally, that is how it is seen. And in China, there's the 797. Well, no, the 796, sorry, not idea, but this is the work hours, from 7 o'clock in the morning until 9 o'clock in the evening, 6 days a week, 796. And that's the work hours. That is completely acceptable to be the work hours, from 7 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock in the evening, 6 days a week. And that is absolutely, what was it, 996? I think it's 996. Can somebody Google it for me? 996. I think it's called 996, which is 9 till 9 for 6 days a week. The younger people that's coming into the organizations, though, especially in China and Korea, they've got a different work ethic, and they see work differently. And that impacts motivation. How do you keep people engaged? How do you keep a generation engaged that don't see work as part of their purpose and defining their humanity? If they just see work as a means to an end, how do you keep them engaged? How do you, what type of incentives do you build? What type of organizational, how beautiful do you make the organizational setting in order for them to want to come to work, So it's quite interesting. And then we have the power distance affects leadership style as well. Communication style impacts feedback and trust. Rewards must match cultural values. And again, there's this distinct difference between Western companies and companies that operate in the likes of China, Korea, and Japan, where even rewards are seen differently. Bonuses, incentives, share schemes, and things are very much a taboo in Eastern companies. That's your job, and what you're earning each month is seen as reward enough. Whereas in the West, we look at bonuses as a means of incentives for us to go the extra mile, for us to be motivated to achieve the organizational objectives. And it is very, very different in terms of how the different cultures see motivations. So what's the difference between these needs and process theories? Needs theories explain what motivates people, so intrinsic, and process theories explain how motivation works. Needs theories like Maslow, Herzberg, McClellan, process, equity, expectancy, and goal setting. And they're not all of them. These are they're not a comprehensive list, but they're the most well-known motivational theories in order to best understand how motivation works within the context of the organization. So saying that, let me pause there for now, and let me get some feedback or some questions from you guys. I don't want us to sort of just sit passively. Please do, dare I say it, engage.
Sir, I have a question. Oh, sorry.
Yes, go for it. Who was first, Andrew or?
Ladies first. Ladies first.
Awesome. Well done.
Okay. Thank you, Andrew. The question that I had was, can you provide an example, sir, of how the motivation works in terms of one of the needs theories and one of the process theories? Because I do understand the theories, but I don't have a real life practical example, except for the money part, especially when it comes to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. But just in nowadays, linking it to how work is nowadays, and what a real life example would look like if I'm an HR practitioner and I'm trying to really establish something that would motivate the employees in that organization.
All right. No, that's a good question. Andrew, is it in a similar vein or was it a different question?
No, it was slightly different, but I can answer her question if you want me to.
Go for it. Yeah, absolutely. I would love that.
So basically, an example, as you would definitely see it, taking from my experience in HR, is what we used to do is we used to provide incentive to those employees. So if a particular employee hit a particular KPI over a 6-month period, the first incentive that they would get is a between 10 and 15K increase in salary. And then what would happen thereafter was they would have the ability to pick an event or pick a some form of activity or game to do for the year-end function, and that would be worked into their incentive plan. And then obviously, depending on how long you were an employee, those incentives would change. So some of the execs got more time off, or they would have more free reign in doing some creative endeavor to help the business. So it just depends what business you're in. But I don't know if that answered the question, but in terms of examples like that, those are like small things we used to do as a business in order to keep the people engaged and motivated to do what they needed to do in order to reap a particular outcome.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Andrew. That's a very good example of the expectancy theory, which is motivation equals expectancy, instrumentality, and valence. So in your case, the effort must lead to performance. So a person must know that, listen, if I do this, then it will lead to me achieving a specific KPI. That's performance leads to outcomes. So there's a clear guideline to say, do this A, B, C, D. And if you do that, it will lead to this outcome. You will receive this. And that outcome must be valued enough in order for that person to go, okay, I think that is important for me. And so a person that maybe receive twice their salary after achieving a KPI, that is a significant value that they can interpret. But a person that's already earning, like executives that are already earning so much money, for them, getting an extra 15,000 Rand might not be something that they value, but they might value something else, which is time off. They might value, overseas holiday, or they might value something that they can do with their family, So that's a very good example of the expectancy theory. Expectancy times instrumentality times valence. Great. Let me maybe pull in Herzberg two-factor theory, because this one, especially at lower levels. So when I talk about junior level, so this would be in a manufacturing environment. A good example in a manufacturing environment would be motivators and hygiene factors. So hygiene factors would be those very basic things that you must have in place in order for the person to feel safe in terms of a safe working environment. You must have policies in place. You must have a decent salary. And again, this is subjective. What is a decent salary? But a salary, as Daniel Pink would say, a salary that's big enough that salary or money doesn't become a discussion. When you're in a manufacturing environment where it's about managing costs and managing margin, then obviously you can't pay people so much money that they won't ask for an increase. It's about paying a wage where people look at it and go, I'm getting a fair wage. And fair will mean I'm getting sufficient for the effort that I'm putting in. So fair, the interpretation in fair within that context would be that. So those would be the hygiene factors. And then motivators would be, to a junior employee, would be to say that, listen, we're going to send you on an additional course that will increase your training. And with that training, there's an opportunity for you to get additional responsibility. And with that additional responsibility, is an opportunity for you to grow within a company by getting a promotion from an operator to a supervisor or to a team leader, etc. And those would then be the things that would be the motivators. It won't be more money, but it will be personal growth or job growth as well. How does that sound? Those two theories, just in terms of making it a bit more real for you. Yeah, sorry, it's Extensive ICT Academy, so I'm struggling with the name.
Oh, sorry, sir. It's as I mentioned last 2 weeks that I'm
Yes.
having an issue with my
Yeah.
personal account. I'm not sure if that's going to affect if there's any register being taken. Okay. No, I get the example, sir. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. No, that's a very good question. Thank you. Thank you for asking that. Are there any other questions?
So I was going to ask on a lower level. So
Yes.
on a junior level, if it would apply not just in terms of a manufacturing kind of thing, but like if you were to take an
Call
IT
center.
company,
Yeah, a call
And-
center, IT company. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, and then your on-site technicians or you people going on-site or whatever, would that apply in that context as well, or not really?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And that's why we have these theories. The ones that are generally the ones that you read that Amos talks about, Maslow is the most well-known one.
Mhm.
But later on, Maslow has disproved his own theory. So if you Google Maslow, you'll hear that he sort of had issues with his own theory. But he's got some other theories, which are also quite great, quite good. He's like a psychologist philosopher.
Okay.
So he's written a lot. Herzberg two-factor theory tends to be, if you look at organizations, you tend to find that they'll practice that in some form. The basics we do right. We make sure people are safe. We make sure they got all the policy in place. We make sure that people are getting a fair wage. And again, fair is open to interpretation. And then motivation would be increased job responsibility, the opportunity for advancement, the opportunity for growth, and so forth. And you'll find that that tends to be within most job environments, most organizational environments. In high intensity environments, a call center where you need to sell so much, in a organization where you have to drive targets, in a sales driven organization, an organization where it is all about achieving KPIs and performance based, you'll find that things like goal setting theory, things like McClelland's theory, things like the expectancy theory, those tends to be sort of a way of motivating people within that context. So you can't really, it's very difficult to come into organization, go into the HR department and see, okay, which theoretical framework do you use for your motivational strategies? Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. But you'll find in most cases, Herzberg tends to be there. And if you want to take a more grander perspective, they can use Maslow, which is essentially that most people want their basic needs met. And once their basic needs are met, they're looking for a way of connection through social connection, teamwork, and so forth. And once that is met, they're looking for some form of achievement in some sort of external recognition. And once you've reached the pinnacle, it is no longer about achievement. Now it's about personal satisfaction and personal growth. And if you look at that, if you use Maslow within sort of a more meta perspective in which you look at all the theories, you can use Maslow quite well.
Thank you. So, sorry, just one more thing.
Yes.
I know you want to move on, and I apologize for taking
No
extra time. But I would argue that in a smaller company, in an SME, where yes, everything is high paced or whatever, it would be a lot easier to determine what theory is being used and how we can change the theory to apply to the particular employees and the business as a whole, as well as addressing leadership problems, if there are leadership problems within that business pertaining to motivation within the company.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you'll find that in smaller companies, because there's so few people, you can have a much greater impact. And there, a motivation becomes part of all of the other initiatives. Because if you're working as a HR sort of manager, HR officer in a small company, you are generalist, which means that you do everything. You do everything from sourcing talent, recruitment, to sitting at the CCMA, to making sure people get paid, to dealing and counseling, to doing the OD stuff, the organizational development stuff, which is all of this, the motivation, understanding organizational culture and all of that. And as a generalist, you kind of have to do many things. In bigger companies, you're a specialist.
Okay.
You're a specialist in L&D, you're a specialist in talent management, you're a specialist in organizational development or OD, you're a specialist, sometimes you're a generalist, but then you're a generalist at a site. So PepsiCo or any one of the major companies would have what they call business partners on each site, and you would look after that particular site, and you would look after around things like safety and compliance and recruitment and placement at a much more sort of basic level within that site. But then at a much bigger level, you'll be a specialist. But in a small, medium-sized company, to answer your question, you've got a lot more free reign as a HR generalist to go in and sort of do these initiatives and see what works. You can go to the CEO and say, listen, I think our current bonus system is not really motivating staff whatsoever. I think we need to find another way of motivating staff through alternative means. And then you can start looking at these theories and go, okay, within this context, which one would be the best one to use? Would it be, if money isn't what's motivating people, or we don't have a budget to start paying people double when they achieve their KPIs, what other forms of motivation are there? Or using the theories, frameworks, in order to form a incentive structure or motivational structure within the organization or culture within the organization. Great. Now that's a good question. Thank you, Andrew. So just in a final couple of points, which is motivated teams perform at higher levels. They drive innovation, as I said earlier. They drive innovation, they drive quality, they drive creativity, better customer service. They deliver more, faster, quicker, at a lower cost. They do more with less. And they tend to be driven to achieve the organization's vision. But most important in terms of the key KPIs or the key metrics that HR looks at, it's things like turnover and absenteeism and organizational culture measured through organizational climate surveys and so forth. Highly motivated teams tend to stay put even when things are very difficult. They tend to come to work even if they don't want to because they're so committed to the company. And that is essentially why we want to have highly engaged and motivated people working in an organization. You don't always have that, though, because not everyone in an organization looks at work as a form of self-expression. Many look at work as just a paycheck, and I go and try to do the absolute least without being caught, and I come home. And you would have encountered people like that sometime. You'll find them a lot in the public sector. I do my job and I go home. I clock in and I go home. If the system is down, I'm not going to help you. Sorry, the system is down, go away. Or you'll find them in certain companies. Sorry, that person is out to lunch. You can call back later. A highly engaged employee would say, sorry, that person is unavailable right now. How can I help you? Okay, I can't help you with that particular query. Can I take your number and call you back as soon as that person arrives? Two very different responses. One is a highly engaged employee, and another one is an employee that just clocking time. And this is the challenge really within organizations, is how do you bring everybody along, even if they don't want to be brought along? And it remains a challenge because, as I said earlier in my introduction, we've got a new generation of workers in millennials that's already in the workforce, that's now the managers of Gen Z. Gen Z is coming into the workforce now. That has a very different perspective of work, a very different perspective of work as an expression of who they are. To answer the question earlier, the manager's role is, or the HR generalist or the HR OD, is to translate theory into practical actions, create a supportive work environment, understand team dynamics, individual needs, and apply a style to different situations depending on it. I'll post this particular presentation. I'll post it on as part of the recording, so you're going to have a look at it again. But what I want to do is just quickly, just in the last few minutes that we have, just touch on the first assessment, because by this week, you should download it and start working on it, getting your report ready. And let me just pause here and talk a little bit about the use of AI. And I am a strong believer in using AI as a helper, but not to offload all of your cognitive tasks to the AI. Meaning, don't let it think for you. Use it as a tool, like a calculator, like Excel. And the way I would propose that you use it for your particular assessment is to upload the assessment questions, ask it to do some research for you, and ask it to give you peer-reviewed articles from the last 5 years. And then go through those articles, check if those links work. Use Gemini for this, because Gemini, you can get the links straight into Google Scholar. And then once you've got a group of articles, say 10 articles that are good articles, that are aligned with the textbook, with the 2030 report, then you can start working on it, and you can start looking at it and going, okay, yeah, I've got all of the knowledge, all of the information that I need. Now let me start working through it. Now you upload all of it onto Gemini again, and now you start working with it and say, okay, here's question 1. Give me a rough draft of what's the best way of answering question 1. Now you have a draft, or you've got a framework, or you've got an outline. You copy the outline, and now you start writing within that outline. So all of the dreary sort of time-consuming work is you offloading to AI, and all of the creative work, all of the work where you're putting your thinking cap on, where you're really sitting and you're writing and you're crafting sentences and you're putting sentences together onto a page. Now that comes from you, and that is where you want to spend your time, on crafting the assignment rather than doing the research and summarizing articles and things. That you can offload to AI and let AI do that for you. Make sure that all the articles that you access is real, because AI still hallucinate a heck of a lot. It gives you links that don't exist, and it gives you articles even that doesn't exist. So make sure that each and every article, you can find the PDF of that article, the PDF version, through EBSCOhost online, and you can download that PDF. So make sure that you have the PDF from the article that Gemini suggests. Don't just use the article link and go, oh, here's an article that seems good enough. So that is what I would suggest that you start doing this week, especially sort of in preparation, so that when you're sitting down for an hour or 2 hours to work on it, you've got a framework or outline for every question, and you start putting in the sentences and you start putting in the words. A question that I got on last night's session was referencing. Now, as a first-year student, I am in term 2. I'm not pedantic when it comes to, oh my word, you forgot the comma and there's no space next to the comma, and the bracket is not right. And no, for me, I want to see, have you attempted to reference, and are you acknowledging your sources? So you writing a sentence, motivational theories can be seen to be blah, 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 blah. And then you don't reference that. Now, those aren't your ideas. Those are the ideas that come from an article that you read, or it maybe have come from many pieces of writing that you've done, and you've sort of synthesized it. So good writing is the T principle, which is theory, explanation, application. T dot E dot A. Sorry, I'm doing this with my mouse. Theory, explanation, application. Give the theory, reference. Now explain the theory, explain, application. As per Maslow, one would apply. And in that way, you'll always know that you've referenced. And rule of thumb is that in most paragraphs, you'll have 2 or 3 or 4 references, mostly. There should hardly be a sentence that's not referenced. Those sentences that are not referenced are generally the A part of your paragraph. So the first part is theory, the second part is explanation, which is the theory in your own words, and then the application part tends to be the bit that's not referenced. Great. Are there any questions around the assignment?
No, sir.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. Somebody did Google it. It's 996, which is from 9 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock at night, 6 days a week. Yo, imagine those are your work hours. My word. Great. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, everybody that signed in. Yeah, Bontle, you've got a question.
Hi, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, we
Yes, sir.
can.
I wanted to ask, would you be able to post the slide so I can go back and see what you wrote in the assessment, like the breakdown?
Sorry. Oh, the T thing that I just wrote down. That
No, I'm
one.
saying the slides, like yes, the assessment, you made the assessment overview and guidance. So I wanted to see if you'll post the slides so we can go back
Oh,
while
yes.
we're writing the assessment to see.
Yes. These slides, I will PDF them and I will upload them forthwith. Maybe not this evening, but definitely first thing tomorrow morning. All right.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay. No problem. Thanks, Monte. Jade, you've got your hand up?
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Jade. What's your
Um,
question?
I just wanted to ask how register works. Sorry, I wasn't here last week, so I just wanted to ask, do we need to put our name in the chats, or do you just look back on who's joined the call? How does the register work?
Jade, that's a new one to me. So Jade, this is the first time I'm teaching a online course, because there's 3 types of courses at SACAP. There's a fully self-supported, you study by yourself in your own time, and there's a lot of activities. And as an educator, you do nothing. You don't even have online sessions. The student just follows along by themselves, and they do quizzes and all kinds of things. So that's one type of course. Then we've got a online flexi course. And the online flexi course, there is not as far as I know, there is no register requirement or attendance requirement as part of the course, because it's flexi and we do online sessions when we do it, and the rest are all activities that are done online. So this course, I don't know, Jade, but I will ask the question and find out for you. But I do know that it's fairly easy when I log on to the recording of these sessions. I can see who logged in and how long they stayed. So yeah, if it comes down to attendance, I can just use the attendance on these calls. Does that answer your question? But I will
Yes,
find out
thank
in
you.
terms of.
No, that's
I'll
perfect. I
find
just
out,
wanted to
yeah.
make sure that, I just wanted to make sure with that. Thank you.
Okay, no problem.
Thanks.
Alrighty. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it, and for logging in and for joining me and for all the good questions. And yeah, let me know if you need anything. Alrighty. Cheers,
Thank
everybody.
you. Bye.
Alrighty.
Thank you.
Drop me a
Bye.
message.
Appreciate it.
Cheers.